Explosive action scenes, a sympathetic Sherlock, and teen romance are just some of the biggest changes the Enola Holmes movie made when adapting the original novels. Yippee-ki-yay movie lovers, I'm Jan, and in this video we're exploring 11 major differences between the Netflix movie and Nancy Springer's Enola Holmes book, The Case of the Missing Marquis. Film and book spoilers ahead, so take care. During interviews for the movie, Henry Cavill has spoken about how his Sherlock diverges from what he calls the traditional misogynistic genius we're used to seeing, as Enola softens him and opens up his heart. This is very different from the way Sherlock's portrayed in Springer's first Enola Holmes mystery as well. In the book, the world-famous detective certainly has a low opinion of women, banging on about their irrationality, untrustworthiness, the innate untidiness of their minds, and even his own sister Enola's limited cranial capacity. And book Sherlock certainly never reminisces about his memories of Enola's childhood and her pine-cone dog Dash as Cavill does in the film. Making Sherlock more openly sympathetic towards his sister in the movie, and giving him, as Cavill says, more warmth, kindness and humanity,
"You've become quite the detective, Enola,"
creates a sharper contrast between him and Mycroft than in the novel, where the brothers are pretty much as curt and imperious as each other, both passing plenty of judgment on Enola, her mother, and how they live. And although we do see some similarities between Sherlock and Enola in the novel, with her even deliberately mimicking him a few times, the fact that in some ways they're like two peas in a pod, as Cavill says, is emphasised more in the film. Sherlock even ends up wanting to be his sister's guardian, which really accelerates the way he grows to respect Enola, which happens much later in the series of 6 books. The movie adds lots more action and intrigue to the already very enjoyable original story. For example, Enola and Tewksbury cross paths in much different circumstances in the film than in the book, where they only meet 3/4 of the way through the story, when they're kidnapped and tied up on a boat in London before escaping and being chased through the streets of the capital. In the movie, however, Tewksbury pops up much earlier, a mere 20 minutes into the film's 2-hour runtime, when he tumbles out of a carpet bag, and then he and Enola end up being pursued by a man trying to murder him before they make a daring escape from a moving train. Tewksbury's early on-screen introduction brings the mystery of his disappearance forward in the story and means that he and Enola spend much more time together than in the book, where Enola travels alone to London by train dressed as a widow rather than as a young boy. The film also adds masses of intrigue to Tewksbury's tale. In the original story, Tewky, as his mother calls him, hates being treated like a baby and wants to run away to sea, so leaves for London, where 2 men kidnap him to get ransom money from his mum and dad, both of whom are still alive. Unlike the movie, there's no big conspiracy involving his grandmother trying to have her progressive son and grandson murdered to prevent them from increasing voting rights among the general population. By adding the grandmother's scheming to the plot, the film raises the stakes, putting Tewksbury's life in mortal danger on several occasions, and also having the fate of the country's progress rest in his and Enola's hands. Extra drama is also added to the story of Enola's mother in the film. Eudoria is described as a free thinker and a proponent of female suffrage in the book, but there's no gunpowder plot or any clues to a store of explosives in Limehouse Lane. And although Enola is attacked and kidnapped on the streets of London, there's no attempted drowning or literally explosive fight scene like in the movie. Another interesting difference is that in the book, one of Enola and Tewksbury's London kidnappers actually plays a dual role, as he also masquerades as a female medium who first claims she can help Tewksbury's family find their missing son, and later recommends they pay the very large ransom when the demand arrives. The film sees Mycroft pack Enola off to his friend Miss Harrison's finishing school for young ladies, where she's taught how to walk, speak, laugh and sew, as well as to act and think as she's told. This is another change from the books, where there's no Miss Harrison character and Enola never goes to boarding school. Though book Mycroft does arrange to send Enola away to school to correct her wild ways, Enola tricks everyone into thinking she's leaving for school, then runs away to continue her search for her missing mother instead. Right at the start of the movie, Enola turns to the camera and speaks directly to us in the audience.
Now, where to begin?
While in the novel she doesn't talk straight to us readers in the same way, the story is told from her point of view. So the film's choice to have her break the fourth wall throughout, giving us a running commentary on her adventures, is a nice way of bringing to life how the book is told through Enola's eyes. And characters connecting directly with their audiences in that way is something director Harry Bradbeer certainly has plenty of experience with. For from his work on the TV series Fleabag, where creator and star Phoebe Waller-Bridge regularly tears down the fourth wall. In fact, it was while watching Fleabag that screenwriter Jack Thorne got the idea to use that device in the movie as a way to get inside the mind of someone who spends the majority of her time alone. In Brad Beer's mind, the main reason to break the fourth wall was Enola's loneliness, as that meant we were her only friend and she needed to communicate with us. A striking difference between the original story and the film is the way the movie plays up a blossoming romance between Enola and Tewksbury, who's aged up from 12 years old in the book, where there's no real hint of any such crush. In the film, Tewksbury even knows Enola's true identity, whereas in the book she deliberately never tells him who she really is, and he only discovers she's related to Sherlock Holmes by accident. Book Enola even disappears from Tewksbury's life without so much as a goodbye, as she suddenly has to avoid being caught by her brother. She does rather regret having to leave Tewky so abruptly, and there are pointers towards a possible friendship between the two, and little hints at their similarities, like their reasons for running away and the hard lessons they learn about the lives of the poor in London. But there's nothing in the novel like Tewksbury's invitation for Enola to live with his family, or their parting kiss, or any of the clear signals that they're very much kindred spirits, and that Louis Partridge's Tewksbury will pop up again in the new film franchise, unlike his book counterpart who only appears in the first story.
You're not rid of me yet, Viscount Tewksbury Marquess of Basilweather.
Enola's relationship with her mother is much closer in the film than it is in the book. In the movie, Enola tells us that they spend a lot of time together and that her mum taught her much of what she knows, including reading, science and sports.
It was just the two of us, and it was wonderful.
In the book, however, while her mother encourages her daughter's reading, drawing and general independence and even taught her to ride a bike, Enola specifically says, "Mum and I seldom interfered in one another's concerns." Given the movie cast well-known actress Helena Bonham Carter as Enola's mother though, it's hardly surprising that the filmmakers decided to expand on the mother-daughter relationship. And beefing up their familial bond and their activities together also gives Enola a backstory that's more visually interesting than sitting reading or wandering around the estate's grounds alone, which is how she tells us she spent a lot of time in the book. In the original story, Enola attributes at least part of the emotional distance between herself and her mum to the fact that she was born what she calls indecently late in her mother's life, creating a scandal and a burden. In fact, when Eudoria goes missing in the novel, she's 64 years old and Enola is 14. At the time of filming, Bonham Carter was 53, and while she wasn't visibly aged up to play Eudoria, the movie does increase Enola's age slightly, making her 16 years old, which is the same age as actress Millie Bobby Brown at the film's release in 2020. The filmmakers are very likely hoping to kick off a franchise with this, using the 6 books in the series, so it makes sense for Brown not to have to play a very young teenager for what could be several years as she grows up. A significant change when it comes to the end of the story is that there's no emotional reunion between Enola and her mum by the final chapter of the book. Instead, things are left relatively up in the air, with Enola simply receiving a coded message from her mum in a newspaper, which she interprets using the language of flowers as meaning that Eudoria is living a contented life wandering free with gypsies. In stark contrast, the movie has Eudoria turn up unexpectedly at Enola's rented room in London to explain her absence.
I couldn't bear to have this world be your future, so I had to fight.
This somewhat teary scene wraps up the mother's story just about enough for now, and possibly even for future films if the filmmakers or Bonham Carter decide against bringing the character back. Yet it also leaves things open enough if everyone wants her to return.
Thank you for your irises. Now if you ever need me, I'll be looking out for them.
Now, if like me you can't wait for another Enola Holmes film, there were some huge clues in the movie's ending that reveal what we can look forward to in the sequel. Tap here to watch my full video on that, or follow the link in the video description. So what were your favourite moments in the movie? And was there anything you didn't like? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to leave a thumbs up and subscribe for all my upcoming videos. Tap left to watch my next Enola Holmes video, or tap right for something else you're sure to like. Thanks for watching and see you next time, yippee-ki-yay movie lovers!